Hey, what's going on? Luke here, and it's time to do my round 7 tips for the 2021 NRL season. I don't think my tips are going that great this year, to be honest. I suppose they're not as bad as what some people's probably are. However, let's go ahead and let's do my tips for round 7. So the first game of the round sees the Penrith Panthers taking on the Newcastle Knights. Both of these teams going to the game with a win last week. Obviously, Penrith haven't lost since the grand final, but apart from that, in terms of regular season games, I think they're in their 20s in terms of games won in a row. So they're absolutely killing it. However, they didn't exactly kill it last week. They took on the Broncos, who are down the bottom of the ladder. I'm not coming along, it's my Bulldogs, but the Broncos, they aren't doing too great themselves, and they really took it to Penrith. So if I was looking at the Penrith performance, I wouldn't say it was great. However, I still think they've got enough to beat the Knights comfortably. The Knights, they got the job done last week, but it definitely wasn't a good performance. It was against a depleted side. It took a last-minute offload from Tyson Frizzell to Kalen Ponga. The only thing that I think could save the Knights is I feel like they've got a lot of players who will be up for this clash. I think you guys like David Clemmer, I think Ponga, I think they'll really step up in this game because they know it's an important game. They know a clash against Penrith, it's going to be a real tough battle. So I think they'll be up for it. And Ponga was actually pretty good last week. It was his second game back, and I thought he was really good despite him looking sick and being sick. So I thought it was a good performance in that sense. But yeah, the Knights, they got a lot of work to do this season if they want to make the top 8. And I think it's going to be a tough ask for them to beat Penrith. I think Penrith are going to win this one. I think it'll be 13+. I think they'll hit back well after last week. Now on a Friday night, it's the Gold Coast Titans taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. This is an interesting clash because the Rabbitohs are going to be without Latrell Mitchell. Also the Titans, Jai Arrow taking on his former club. The Titans themselves getting absolutely towed up last week by Manly. So they'll be fired up in front of a home crowd. This is a game I could actually see the Titans winning. In fact, I think I'm actually going to tip the Titans. I think I'm going to tip them from upset just because of how bad they got beat last week. So a lot of teams, they generally hit back pretty well. We saw the Tigers last week against the Rabbitohs hit back pretty well. Got very, very unlucky to lose that one. The Rabbitohs, the team we're talking about, was actually quite lucky to get the win there. Obviously, a golden point win over the Tigers. Doesn't really say a lot about the Rabbitohs considering sort of the caliber of the Tigers and the fact that they got absolutely towed up by the Cowboys. In saying that though, it is weird that I'm tipping the Titans after they got absolutely annihilated by Manly. I'll say they got annihilated by Tom Trbojevic. It was just one of the best performances I've seen in a long, long time. But I just don't see the Titans doing that 2 weeks in a row. And that's sort of how they've gone all season. They played one good game, one bad game. I think this might be the good game in front of the home crowd. I can see them getting the job done against the Rabbitohs. It is an upset, but at the same time, Rabbitohs haven't exactly had fantastic form. They've been hot and cold themselves, and without Latrell, I think Latrell gets him out of trouble a lot. He just has that ability to just break the line at will, and if they need a try, he's able to go through and score it. It doesn't really take much. You can just pass to him, and he can create something, and not having that there, I think it's really going to hurt them, and I think we'll finally see how good Latrell is in terms of how much he adds to the side, and we'll see how they go without him. But as I said earlier, I'm going to tip the Gold Coast Titans for an upset. I'm going to go 1-12. I think it'll be close, but I think they get the job done. Now into the second game of Friday night, it's the Parramatta Eels taking on the Brisbane Broncos. This is an interesting clash because this is a game I could actually see the Broncos winning. It's also a game I could see them getting beat by 50. Eels are sort of, I don't really know what to expect from the Eels. They've been so good at times this year. Other times they haven't been that great. Obviously last week, absolutely fantastic. Taking on the Raiders in Canberra. It's a tough ask for anybody. And also you add in the fact that the Eels lost the previous week to the Dragons. I was sort of going into it and I was like, well, everything says the Raiders should win this one. Yet the Eels came out and they really put on a clinic, to be honest. Now whether that's going to happen against the Broncos, I don't know. I think it helps that it's played at Bankwest. Now if this was played at Suncorp, the Broncos seem to be a different side when they've actually got their fans with them. But I think at Bankwest, I think the Eels would be way too strong. And I think the Broncos, I feel like they're still trying to find their way. Look, Dearden and Croft, they were a lot better than what they have been to start the season. However, I just think being away from home, I think the crowd not behind them, I think the Broncos will really struggle with this one. And I think the Eels will just be able to ride the momentum. I think they'll score a few early tries. And then I think they'll be able to go on with it. I think they'll go on with it well. Obviously, there's all the talk about the whole sex tape scandal that's happening right now in terms of the Parramatta Eels. I don't know who the player is, but apparently it's a Parramatta player. So whether that affects things, I don't know, but I think the Eels will come out and I think they'll win 13+. Now moving on to Super Saturday, the first game is the Cronulla Sharks taking on my Canterbury-Bankstown Bulldogs. Now every week I feel like I go into this video and I talk about how I think this is the week the Bulldogs can get the job done. But this one is, I truly think the Bulldogs could win this one. I saw enough last week in terms of the Cowboys game, despite them being so shit for most of the game. But once it got to 12 players on the field, they actually started to attack pretty well. And whether that's just the Cowboys taking the foot off the pedal or the Bulldogs actually playing well, I'm not sure. But really, it doesn't matter. The Bulldogs were scoring points, and that's what they've struggled to do all season. And they finally got it together. Look, I don't know if they'll win this one, but they have beat the Sharks in the past. And the Sharks are sort of side that They don't have like a super fantastic side. They're a very solid side, but they're not an absolute gun side. So if things don't go their way early, I feel like the Bulldogs will just hang around long enough to just frustrate the Sharks. And with the whole coaching situation and all the players off contracts and that, I feel like there is a few disruptions. Obviously, if there's a team that's got disruptions, it's going to be the Bulldogs. Obviously, haven't won a game all year, but look, realistically, I've got to go with the Sharks here. I've got to go with them 13 plus. I think they probably will run away with it in the end, but there is a part of me that just thinks the Bulldogs might be able to cause an upset, but I don't really know. I just feel like if there's going to be a team you could provide an upset, like in previous weeks, they took on the Cowboys and that, if they'd won, I don't think it was necessarily an upset. Whereas if they beat the Sharks, I do think it's an upset. I do think the Sharks have a better team on paper by quite a distance. So Sharks should win it, but in the past, Bulldogs have troubled the Sharks. So I'm just holding on to that hope. Now moving on to the second game, Super Saturday. It's the North Queensland Cowboys taking on the Canberra Raiders. Now this is one that, form-wise, you look at this and I should say the Cowboys should win this one. They've won the last couple of weeks, but they've won against some pretty poor opponents, let's be honest. The Raiders been taking on some pretty good opponents. The Eels and Penrith losing to them. Obviously last week was pretty much a write-up for the Raiders, but we know they're a lot better than that. And I know that they'll be a lot better than that. No Josh Hodgson for them this week, apparently, as well. I think Starling's come in. So I think, weirdly enough, I feel like they actually play a lot better with Starling. Just something about Hodgson. I don't know if it's the rule changes. I don't know if it's the injuries. But it feels like the game's catching up to him a little bit. And he just hasn't been as effective this year. And yeah, it probably is injuries. It probably is the game getting faster. Just doesn't suit his game. And I think Tommy Starling coming in, he was fantastic for him last year. I think it'd be fantastic for him again coming into the side. And that's exactly why they re-signed him. I feel like they suspected Hodgson maybe was a bit injured. I don't know, but they've kept him around and for good reason. And I think he'll come in, he'll step up. And I think the Raiders, they hit the ground running in this fight. And I think they'll put a bit of a hiding on the Cowboys. I think they'll be fired up after Ricky Stewart's comments about how a lot of guys don't really deserve to be playing first grade and are sort of just collecting a paycheck. I think that's pretty much what he was saying. Just said they were just happy to be playing first grade. And he wants guys who want to win a premiership. So I think they'll come out all fired up after hearing that. And look, at times throughout this season, the Raiders have looked all right, but they haven't really looked sort of top four standard. And this might be the game to get them going. Whether it is, I don't know, but if they're playing the Cowboys, I feel like they're going to go into this game as the favourites, and I think deservedly so, despite the form. So yeah, I don't really have too much to say about the Cowboys because of the opponents that they've been beating haven't been great, and also the fact that they've been winning, they've been getting to a good lead, and then the other team comes back. I just talked about the Bulldogs coming back with 12 men on the field. So if Cowboys are conceding to a 12-man Bulldogs side who struggle to score points, what are the Raiders going to do? The Raiders have some absolute guns in attack, so it's going to be a long day in the office for the Cowboys, in my opinion. I'm going to go Raiders 13+. Now, moving on to Sunday, we actually have 3 games on Sunday. The first game is the West Tigers taking on the Warringah Sea Eagles. Now, this Manly side is a different side with Tom Trbojevic. I've already done a video talking about it. We all know Manly are a completely different side. He just adds so much to that side, and it's almost like he adds confidence to all the other players around him. So Manly go from being a bottom side to sort of a top 8 side, maybe even a top 4 side with Tom Trbojevic in the side. And pretty much the West Tigers, they're a bit of a toss-up. Some games they don't. Is this going to be the game that they play good? I don't know, but I think Manly have too much for them. Just the West Tigers have too much inconsistency, and it feels weird for me to sit here and say, considering Manly's start to the season and how they've been over the last couple of seasons, but I think they got enough troops in their side. Shoes has been playing good. Foran and Cherry Evans getting their combinations together. Trbojevic is back. The hooker position, Cust and Kroger, they sort of had more time to wrap their head around the hooker position. So, look, I think Manly, they'll be all right in the next coming weeks, and I think they'll have enough to get through the Tigers. Look, the Tigers, I don't know, they're a frustrating side. We saw them play like absolute shit against the Cowboys, yet they played so good last week. But just the question mark I have is, was the game last week, was that just a one-off thing? Was that going to be how they're going to play going forward? I don't really know with the Tigers. Whereas Manly, I feel like they're going to play really good this week, and I think they'll get the win. I think it's going to be a close one. I think the Tigers do have a pretty decent side in terms of on paper. Dane Laurie's been pretty good. Adam Dewey's been pretty good for him. It's just a matter of finding a halfback, and they've just signed Jackson Hastings, so maybe it's going to be him. But for this week, it's going to be Luke Brooks. So maybe that's going to inspire Luke Brooks to step up his game. Maybe it is. Maybe he's going to come out and have a blinder. I don't really know, but I think your safe money, I think your smart money will be on Manly. I'm going to go Manly 1-12. I just think after last week's performance, even though the Tigers played really, really good, they still ended up losing. And like I said, I think it might have just been a one-off rather than them playing like that going forward. Whereas I feel like Manly, with Tom Trbojevic back in the side, I think that's how they're going to be playing. And I think them beating the Titans, I think that's a huge thing because the Titans are really good sides. Now into the second game of Sunday, it's the Sydney Roosters taking on the St. George Illawarra Dragons. This is a very interesting clash because generally this is a pretty good game. You look at the lineups, both of these sides, not fantastic, but we know the Dragons are capable of pretty good stuff this year, as are the Roosters. I mean, the Roosters have been playing quite well as of late, despite all the injuries and stuff. Also, you're adding Victor Radley. He ended up getting off, so he's going to be playing this week. I think the Roosters, for me, I think they'll have enough to beat the Dragons. However, I feel like the Dragons actually have a pretty good record against the Roosters, one of the better ones anyways. A lot of teams don't really beat the Roosters too often, but I feel like in this clash in particular, I feel like the Dragons fare pretty well. And it feels weird to sit here and look at this Dragons side and know that they're in 6th spot. So look, they're definitely playing above what I thought they would. However, last week was kind of a bit of a reality check, but I didn't see it coming. I didn't see them losing to the Warriors. But at the same time, I kind of did as well because I keep waiting for them to fall off. And I just kept going, is this the week? Is this the week? And it just wasn't happening. But then the Warriors obviously beat them. So the Dragons, I think it was a bit of an off day for them. I think they'll be a lot better this week. But I think the Roosters, I think they'll be able to get the job done. Sunday afternoon football, I think it'll suit the Roosters. And I think the Haas will actually have a pretty good game. Sam Walker, I think he'll be good. And I think Tedesco and all the others, I think they'll be able to help them to a win. I mean, Melbourne, it's a tough ask. I didn't think they were ever going to beat Melbourne. Now, I know the game was hyped up as a massive clash, but it was just a total mismatch in terms of lineups. Yeah, and that Brett Morris pulled out last minute too. So I think Melbourne was always going to beat them. Whereas the Dragons, I feel like it's a better matchup for the Roosters. I think it's a pretty even matchup, to be honest. So I'm going to go Roosters 1-12 for this one. Now into the last game of Sunday. It's a Melbourne Storm taking on the New Zealand Warriors. Now, I feel, sort of talking about the Dragons and Roosters, I feel like this is a similar one. I feel like this is always a pretty tough clash. I feel like the Warriors come out fired up against them. I don't know if it's like a Melbourne thing because Melbourne have a lot of Kiwis in their side, but it always seems to be a pretty good clash. And I think maybe it's just the Warriors' play style. Maybe the off-the-cuff stuff sort of rattles Melbourne a little bit. But I think you just look at the quality in the sides. I think everything sort of says that Melbourne are going to win this one. However, we've seen the Warriors this year. They've been so hot and cold as well, but we've seen them be able to get it done against some really good sides, like the Titans and such. But yeah, Melbourne, I think they're just going to be too consistent. Harry Grant has been so good for them. As soon as he's come back into that side, they just look so much more polished. And Brandon Smith being able to move to the lock position, I think it definitely adds a lot to Melbourne as well. So I'm thinking Harry Grant's going to inspire them to a win. I don't even know if it's just Harry Grant. I mean, Jerome Hughes is so good, Munster, talking about a big 3, but they've pretty much got like a big 13. Melbourne Storm is just so good. So I can't see them losing this one. I do think it's going to be fairly close, but I think in the end, I do think they'll win 13+. Anyways, those are my tips for round 7. Leave in the comment section below. What are your tips? Do you think mine are atrocious? I mean, if you said so, I wouldn't disagree with you. I mean, my tipping record this year hasn't been great, so you're probably not wrong. But let me know in the comment section below. What are your tips? Is there any game you're looking forward to? Let me know. Also, while you're at it, make sure you go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Also, make sure to turn on the notification bell. It's pretty important in terms of you've actually seen the video because we know the sub boxes, they're not exactly great. So go ahead, click on that bell and be notified immediately. So do all that sort of stuff. Give me a follow on social media. It's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke and YT for the most part. Mr. Luke just for Facebook. But for everything else, it's Mr. Luke and YT. So go ahead, give me a follow, give me a like, give me an ad, do all that sort of stuff. And stay tuned for more content on the channel. That's all I'm ending this one. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. See yous.